What's happening? So the Charlotte Regional finally came, and the deck I decided to bring was of course a non-meta deck in Serena EX. I've been working on different builds to see which one I like the best for a few months, and let me show you which one I brought. So let's go to the deck list. Alright, so before I tell you how the games went, we gotta talk about the deck. First thing, of course, we run a 4 Boon Suite, 3 Serena. And then for my end game finisher, after all the testing and everything I did, I decided to go with the 2-2 line of Rufflet and Braviary. And the reason I chose this over something like the Vespiquen is because it requires no energy. The turn right before you need Braviary and their board is locked, you put Rufflet down with a Panic Mask, so more than likely they can't boss it up and knock it out with anything else. And then you have the Braviary in hand, and either Serena gets knocked out, which happened to me a couple times, which you don't care because then you put Rufflet in the active, draw a card, put Braviary on, and then win the game. Or if Serena doesn't get knocked out, you hopefully have a second energy either already on it, or at that point you attach return, retreat, or have the switch, and again, Braviary for the win. Now, how do we get there? Well, I took a little idea from Charizard EX. I added in a Rotom. So at the end of turn 1, you can use it instant charge, get 3 extra cards for your next turn. Also lets you play the Forest Sealstone, which could either help during setup or end of the game. And we play 4 Battle VIP to get out that Rotom, the Bound Suite, and the little tech card that I liked so much, I had to include it, was Radiant Jirachi. And the reason I included this in is because after you Rotom, you probably have somewhere between 5 to 8 cards in your hand. And then you are forcing your opponent to hit out Jirachi or work around it by either wasting a boss, escape rope, or something. But if they hit the Jirachi out, you get to get 3 cards from your deck before you start your turn, giving you somewhere between that 8 to 11 card hand when you're going on your second turn. Now, speaking of, we want to always go second with, reason being, you want them to evolve before you drop those damage counts. Because if you drop them before they evolve, once they evolve, they can just attack again anyway. And the other major tech I put in was Toedscruel EX. And it's so important I had to play 2, just in case one gets prize, because we have no way of getting it out, because we really don't want to take prize. This is going to stop Sableye, Roaring Moon's attack, Frenzy Gouging, Giratina's V-Star, unless they play the Path, which then obviously shuts down the ability. But then at that point, they V-Star, and hopefully you have another Serena to go, straight into the active, and then at that point, the only thing they can do is 2-shot it with Lost Impact or one of their other attacks. And then the other thing Toedscruel EX stops is going to be the Devo Evolution, which a lot of decks are playing, but it only stops the ones that have energy on them. And then the last tech card I put in was the Baby Toedscruel, because I was figuring there was going to be a bunch of Goldango and I'd probably run into 1 or 2 of them. For the supporters, 3 Irida, 3 Arven, 3 Colress, all for the setups. And then I do run 1 Raihan, because when you get knocked out, you're most likely going to have energy in the discard. And if you don't have one, you can get it onto Serena and then most likely get a Panic Mask or anything else you need out of your deck. And then I play 1 Iono, which I try to save for the end of the game. If they've taken a bunch of prizes, you can knock them down to 2 or 1 card to maybe buy yourself another turn or 2 if you're not set up for the win. Now, all the other item cards are going to be 3 Ultra Ball, 2 Nest Ball. I put in 1 Counter Catch. Since we never take a prize, we're going to be behind. And then you could ball something up like Flaffy for Miraidon or Brute Bonnet that has a 3 retreat cost. And if they can't find a switch, they're stuck. And again, if you are ahead in prizes and they only have 1 or 2 left, yeah, Counter Catcher, something with a high retreat cost, Iono, and that would probably buy you a turn or 2, because if you Iono, you're getting most likely 6 new cards. Then I put 1 Heavy Ball just in case anybody gets stuck in the prizes. 1 Lost Vacuum, if you want to put damage on something like a Roaring Moon that already has a capsule on it, you can Lost Vacuum it away if you need some prizes. We only really need 1 switch. Play an Earthen Vessel in case we need to find energy. Of course, the most important is going to be those 3 Panic Masks and the town store to go with it to try to find it if you haven't gotten it already. And then that left us with 7 energy, because we only need 1 for Serena in order to do its attack. All right, so that's how I came up with the deck list. Now, let me tell you about the games. All right, so the first game, I sit down, and of course, it's Lost Tina. Now, one thing that happened to me all day long was I kept losing the coin toss and having to start first. Now, in this very first game, I couldn't get set up. I used instant charge 3 times in a row and still could not find a way to get a Nest Ball, Ultra Ball, or a Bounce Suite So at that point, I just scooped. Because between this deck and Lost Tina, games take forever. Now the second game, obviously I got to go second. It was super close. But in the end, they were able to use Sableye on whoever I was not able to get an energy on before I was able to Braviary, and they took game 2 as well. So right away, I'm 0-1. Round 2, another Giratina, and another coin toss lost. So I went first, and on their turn 2, they had 10 in the lost zone. So you can imagine their board setup was absolutely phenomenal, and they just whooped me on game 1. Then of course again, game 2, I get to go second, and they played a Path to the Peak on turn 1. I couldn't find my Vacuum or an Arven, so I couldn't use my Rotom. I got a little bit of a setup, but in the end, it was too much, that Path to the Peak. Couldn't get rid of it, and now in games, I'm 0-4 and 0-2 in match. So then we go to round 3. I sit down across from a Miraidon. Now I think we have an absolute awesome matchup with Miraidon. You just gotta be careful of those Bravery Charms. Because if you drop 190 damage counters on Miraidon, it can't attack. But if they had a Bravery Charm, your first turn was for absolutely nothing. Now again, the first game, I go first. I had a good setup. They had a good setup, but it worked to a T. I locked their board. It worked perfectly, and I won game 1. So now game 2, I had to go first again, and I just wasn't able to lock his board in time because now he knew how to play, and he put down different Pokemon. So there was no Flaffy to counter Catcher. So I lost game 2 with 8 minutes left. We were not able to finish a game 3. If we played it out, I honestly think I would have won. I had a really good setup, and I had already locked 2 of his Pokemon down. But it ended in time. So now I'm 0-2-1. So the only way I could even think about making day 2 is to roll off 6 in a row. Now, obviously, that's probably not going to happen. So I sit down for my next one, and it is Mew. Now, the first game, they started with an Ice Cube, and by turn 3, they still had an Ice Cube in the active and only a Genesect V on the bench. So they scooped. So I won game 1 fairly quick. Game 2, we were both able to get our setup. They attacked with Meloetta that had 2 fusion energy on it. I attached a second energy to Serena and knocked it out for 180. So I took 1 prize card, but more importantly, I got rid of 2 Fusion Strike energy, so they were not able to one-shot Serena anymore if they got all 4 out plus a power tap. So then because I only needed 5 prize cards, I locked a Mew VMAX. The next turn, locked down a Genesect. The next turn, Braviary, boom, 1-2-0. And now I'm 1-2-1. So I'm feeling pretty good because 4 out of the last 5 games, it was working. And then I sit down and I run into a Sablezard Lost Box. So they started with 3 Comfies and they were able to get 10 in the Lost Zone fairly quickly, drop all the damage counters because I couldn't get Toedscruel EX out in time. And then they devoed my Serena, and then that was pretty much the end of the game. So then we go to game 2, and now I know I have to get a Serena, and I have to get out that Toedscruel EX and find some energy and put it on both of them so they don't get Devo. So during the second game, they were able to Devo one of my Serenas because I couldn't find energy. I was literally almost halfway through my deck. I couldn't find an Arven, an Irida, or an Earthen Vessel itself, or just even a plain energy. Now, after he devoed the first one, figured I was safe. I was able to find an energy, build up another Serena. They dropped damage counters again on everybody who didn't have energy, which was the Toedscruel, and then all of a sudden, they produced a second Devo, which I did not see coming. That left my Serena unprotected, because Toedscruel EX was now gone. And in the beginning of that game, they had knocked out my other baby Toedscruel, so I couldn't build up another one, even with the second Toedscruel EX. So I obviously took the L on that one too. So now I'm 1-3-1. So next up, Goldengo. So I'm thinking, I gotta get that baby Toedscruel down, and then I locked their board. But unfortunately, it was the Goldengo with the Palkia. Turn 2, he Moonlight Shurikens with Greninja, 2 of my Boon Suites, and at that point, I just scooped because I was unable to get another one out anyway. And then game 2 happened. They ended up knocking out one of my Serena. They probably had about 7 or 8 energy in the discard. I got the baby Toedscruel down, so I'm thinking I got this locked. Now, before I was able to lock their board, get the 6 prize cards, get the Braviary up, they coin bonus, found 3 more energy, bossed up the Toedscruel, and was able to knock it out because it only has 120 HP. And at that point, it was a race to see if they can get their item cards. I think I Iono'd, and unfortunately they were able to take the last 2 prize cards because they bossed up Rotom, because they were able to get the 4 energy with an energy retrieval. Even though I had their board locked at that point and was ready to take the win. So now I'm 1-4-1 and just trying to have some fun. Next up, Charizard. Charizard is a really good matchup because they don't play many switch cards, maybe one, right? And they can't retreat because then they lose their double energy. So I just locked their board 2 straight games, not a problem, and now it was 2-4-1. And then in round 8, my opponent didn't show up. They were also 2-4-1. But I played the guy next to me, whose opponent also didn't show up. He had Guardy. It was really an auto win. At that point, I was 3-4-1 with a free win. And in the last round, another Goldango. Now this time I was able to get the Toedscool out pretty quickly. They had used their Greninja, put some energy in the discard, and then at some point they had way too much energy in the discard. When I put Toedscool down, he only had 2 energy in his deck, so he couldn't get any of it out. Couldn't knock out Toedscool even if he bossed it up. So he scooped. And the second game pretty much ran the same way because I locked his board and then I put Toedscool down and I had a Panic Mask on. He had no attackers that can take it out, and I ended up using Braviary and knocking out all his Goldengos at one shot. So I ended the day at 4-4-1. Not bad for a deck that's non-meta. Now, after taking this to a regional, would I do it again? No, but I would definitely take this to a challenge, because in a best of 3 setup, once your opponent figures out what to do after game 1, they play totally different, and it could cost you the game. So I think Serena right now would be a great deck for a challenge, where there's no top cut, no best of 3. Now let me know what you think about this deck list that I took to the Charlotte region. We've got another regional coming up in Knoxville in 2 weeks. I am going to take a different deck. Let me know what deck you think I should take, and I'll see you next time.